The sun barely crested the horizon, painting the Texas cornfield in hues of gold and amber. Dew clung to every stalk, each droplet a tiny prism catching the dawn's first light. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of earth and growing things, and the only sound was the faint rustle of leaves swaying in the breeze. To an outsider, the scene was serene, a moment of perfect tranquility where nature seemed to pause and breathe. But beneath this calm, an invisible army was stirring, its presence betrayed only by the occasional snap of a stalk or the soft grunt from the shadows. Wild boars, feral pigs that numbered in the millions across the United States, were preparing to strike. For farmers like Jessica Hart, this was no idyllic morning. It was the prelude to a battle, one she had fought too many times before. Jessica stood on the porch of her weathered farmhouse, her calloused hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug. Her eyes, sharp despite the early hour, scanned the rows of corn that stretched across her family's land. She'd inherited this farm from her father, who'd inherited it from his, a legacy of sweat and soil that had sustained them for generations. But now it was under siege. The boars had come again last night. She could see it in the uneven rows, the patches of churned earth where her crops had been uprooted. She set the mug down, grabbed her shotgun, and strode toward the field. Kneeling beside a broken stalk, she ran her fingers over the jagged edges, her jaw tightening. Months of work, she muttered, gone in one night. The USDA estimated feral pigs caused over $1.5 billion in agricultural losses every year. But for Jessica, it wasn't just numbers. It was her livelihood, her family's future, and the weight of a legacy she refused to let crumble. Across the country, from the soybean fields of the Midwest to the corn farms of Texas, no crop was safe. A single night could leave acres flattened, irrigation systems mangled, and fields reduced to mud and debris. Jessica had seen it too many times, her carefully tended corn, planted with hope and nurtured through drought and storm, destroyed in hours by a horde of ravenous pigs. These weren't the cute piglets of storybooks. Feral boars were cunning, adaptable, and relentless. A sow could produce 2 litters a year, each with 5 to 6 piglets, and within months, a small group could multiply into a destructive force. Their keen senses and surprising speed made them elusive, able to exploit the smallest gaps in human defenses. Jessica had tried everything: fences, traps, even staying up all night with her shotgun, but the boars always seemed one step ahead, in a small office cluttered with maps and charts. Dr. Emily Carter, a wildlife biologist, studied the enemy. Her desk was a chaos of papers, each one detailing the exponential growth of feral pig populations. "They're not just eating crops," she explained to a local reporter, her voice steady but urgent. "They're tearing apart ecosystems. They uproot native plants, compete with wildlife for food, and alter soil composition in ways that can take years to recover." She pointed to a graph showing a sharp upward curve. In the past decade, their numbers have exploded. They carry diseases: swine brucellosis, pseudorabies, that can infect livestock and threaten entire food chains. Emily's research was part of a broader effort to understand the boar's behavior, to predict their movements and reproduction cycles. But even she admitted the challenge was daunting. "They learn," she said, shaking her head. "They evade traps, avoid hunters. It's like they're playing chess, and we're still learning the rules." Out in the field, Tom Riggs knew the boar's cunning firsthand. A grizzled hunter in his 50s, he'd spent decades tracking game, but these pigs were different. He crouched in the woods near Jessica's farm, adjusting a motion-censored trap with practiced hands. "They ain't dumb," he said, his voice rough as gravel. "You set a trap, they figure it out. You hunt them, they scatter and come back smarter." Last night, he'd caught a single piglet, its squeals echoing through the dark as the trap snapped shut. But one piglet was nothing when dozens, maybe hundreds, lurked in the shadows. Tom had seen fields turn to wastelands, irrigation lines chewed through, and farmers driven to despair. The government had taken notice, funding hunting permits, trapping programs, and even aerial culling in some regions. Helicopters would sweep over fields, sharpshooters taking aim at fleeing boars. But despite these efforts, the pigs kept coming, adapting faster than the humans trying to stop them. That evening, Jessica stood at a podium in the community meeting hall, facing a room packed with farmers, hunters, and worried neighbors. The air was thick with frustration and fear. "We can't keep losing our crops, our land, our way of life," she said, her voice steady but fierce. "We need better fences, smarter traps, more hunters. We need to fight back together." A young farmer raised his hand, his face etched with worry. "What about the government? Ain't they supposed to help?" Jessica nodded, but her expression was grim. "They're trying. Permits, traps, campaigns, but it ain't enough. We need resources. Fences that can't be broken. Sensors to catch 'em early. Maybe even drones." The crowd murmured in agreement, a spark of resolve kindling among them. This wasn't just about one farm or one field. It was about their community, their survival. Beyond the fields, the ecological toll was staggering. Feral pigs didn't just destroy crops. They tore through native ecosystems, uprooting plants and outcompeting deer, birds, and other wildlife for food.